Welcome back, Bleed Gang. This Old Swords with you once again. And here is a review that I actually had fears about making. And I'll tell you why. I am so impressed by this knife. And I have to also say, at this price, by this maker who is very well known as a TwoSun knife designer, Mazwan Mokhtar. I felt I couldn't do this knife its full due, its full justice, because there is so much to say about this TwoSun that is got to be probably my most favorite out of about 75 TwoSuns that I've seen and owned. Yeah, that's right. TwoSun, if you're not familiar with the brand, has been heavily marketed on eBay prior to being available from places like, I think perhaps AliExpress and DHgate and some of those overseas stores, but more recently from White Mountain Knives, and that's where this one came from. Part of the problem is, since it's sort of a floating price point, since they've gone up at auction, it's difficult to establish a retail price. The retail price on this knife was $150 from White Mountain. If you take 10% off, that's $15. $135 for a knife that I would say, if it were made by anyone else of these materials, would be $350 to $400. This is Riot and WE and Best Tech quality at their best. And I know I'm going way out on a limb to say that, but take a look at the beauty of what was done here. Design. Look at that deep fuller on the side of the blade, if you want to call it a fuller. Usually fullers are on blades. The clip that blends in with that design. And there are some points where some of the design notes make it perhaps a little less functional than it could be. Jared Neve talked about the clip. I agree that he shouldn't have used the ball. Mazwan came back and replied to that review and said, yeah, my bad on that. I shouldn't have gone with that ball. It does drag in and out of the pocket when they set up the clip that way. Look at the micro milling on this frame lock. And the way they spaced the carbon fiber blocks, the inlays, and chamfered the edges. So you actually have a little shadow box around each of those inlays. Extremely interesting. It is the TS306, in case you didn't catch that in the thumbnail. It is what we can call a kind of a reverse Tonto, if you've got to use that terminology, but it's got a deep belly. It's kind of got a Warncliffe to it. Very much in keeping with some of the designs, excuse me, from Benchmade. Stone, no, it's a brush finish on the spine, right out to the edge. Only little flaw I found was right out here. It's a bit sharp, but they didn't break those edges because they didn't want to break the design lines. It is chamfered up here where it counts. Great jimping, very short run of it. Again, Mazwan Mokhtar design. And here's the kicker. It is from a new steel, relatively new, a couple years now, but not seen on very many knives. That's not a misprint. It isn't M390, it's M398. Let's talk a little bit about that. So if you can see that screen. That is from Knife Steel Composition app. You could freeze frame on that, and or listen to me for just a little bit and be patient if you would. Böhler Uddeholm introduced M398 steel in 2019. At least that's when it appeared on various knife-related forums. M398 is intended as an evolution and improvement over a well-known Böhler M390 steel that we all know and love. As far as pure wear resistance is concerned, it's definitely an improvement. M398 has a lot more carbon, 0.70% more of it, and 3.2% more vanadium, making it a whopping 7.2%. Obviously, it isn't a steel which is easy to work with, and M390 wasn't one either. From what he's gathered so far, forging is theoretically possible but very difficult, but at very low temperatures. And I'm not going to go on with too many more of the technical details, but you can look it up. At any rate, it's the first TwoSun knife I'm aware of in M398, and in fact, it's the first knife I've handled in M398. Some specs, why not? Overall length. It is not a small knife, and I'm going to have to back out a little bit. It is not a small knife, which I like. Just over 8.5 inches, call it like 8.6 inches overall, with a blade of 3 3/4 and a cutting edge of 3 3/4. I think they list it technically as 3.74. Okay. Handle width in inches 0.58, not too bad, and it is very much sculpted. Show you that in a moment. 0.15 and 3.8 millimeter blade stock. Let's do a weight on it. I'm staring at it too much. Here we go. It's going to be a little heavy. 5.37 ounces. Not crazy, not for that size. So we've got a flipper tab that is interestingly small and on this canted forward angle of the frame. Fires with a light switch action very easily. One thing I wanted to see is if we had any milling in here, and it appears as though we do not. That is interesting, because you do see milling on the inside of a lot of the titanium handles. However, we've got all these cutouts for these inserts, and that is effectively lightening the knife a bit. Got a half back spacer that is chamfered somewhat on the edges so you get those lines. The clip is attached with a single screw, and what's interesting here is the way that these sculpted fullers run all the way to the back, and you got a little bit of a gap there on the clip. That could be seen as a flaw in the design. It's a kind of a chunky handle, but it's nicely chamfered on the edges. It is very comfortable to hold, I find. You can hold it in a saber grip on the angle where your thumb meets that jimping perfectly. You can choke up and use that swale on the top. You don't have jimping there, but the thumb fits in there depending on how long your thumb is and how big your hands are. That works for me. Let's put it that way. Now let's talk about the opening hole. It's a large one, and as other reviewers have noted, you can get your finger jammed up in there let me do it this way, right? You can get the middle finger stuck in there to where it stays. So you have to be a little careful of that, but with a flick, it'll open. Just plenty of real estate there in the hole to engage, as well as using the thumb. You can't get your thumb fully in there. I mean, I would say probably about what? About a quarter of that hole, quarter to a third is covered by the frame in the closed position. But digging my thumb in right there, no problem. The detent is just about right for all three of these opening methods. Beautiful gray micro milling, gray anodization, I believe it is. Really nice satin finish on the blade. And it's Warren Osborne I was thinking about earlier with the design, with that peak. Looks a little like an Osborne, but with a considerably deeper belly. Very useful, and comes through extremely sharp, which is a good thing because I think you need to work a little bit at sharpening this even on diamond, but that is just hair-splitting sharp. Let me see how sharp. And no, I won't split any hairs. Oh, laser. Just an absolute. A laser blade. Always need to find out what to do with the paper once I'm finished. But this is the, again, TS306. We got a little bit of branding there. We've got TwoSun on the blade, nicely, I think. Good size. We've got Mazwan's emblem there on the blade, Mazwan Mokhtar Designs. And the steel M398. I believe you can see that. Let's just do a brief compare, not for size for sure, with another Mazwan Mokhtar design. And this is the TS264, much shorter knife with a very wide blade profile in M390. Tiny by comparison, even if we give it the advantage of perspective with the camera. Good 2 inches longer is the 306. But look at the blade, just about as tall. And this is a thumb stud opener. But you can see a lot of the same design notes. The arch and clip. This curve here. This one, however, has got larger carbon fiber overlays or inlays. But I feel you can see Mazwan's design language speaking there. For comparison, here is the Rat 1. Always got to bring the Rat 1 out, right? Right about the same overall length and right about the same blade length. About 3 3/4. How about the Griptilian? Shorter, of course, by about an inch, maybe 3/4. Another look around. Just really love the knife, love the opening methods, love the design, love the materials and the workmanship. Titanium, M398, carbon fiber. 3 of my favorites. Okay, don't forget to give this video a like if you would. It helps, and it helps if you subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back with you soon.